Our community here has asked for more deep dives on specific design styles. And I totally get it. What everyone is looking for is exact resources to get a specific design style that they love. And that's what we're doing today. We are covering my all-time favorite design style, vintage whimsical design. And I want to bring you along for how we're going to achieve this look. Vintage whimsical design is gorgeous. It is a combination of all of the storybook cottages that we read growing up in all of the incredible fairy tales with their illustrations. Let's be real, we loved the illustrations more than we loved the actual stories. And in those illustrations, what we saw was this quaint cottage lifestyle where you probably talk to animals outside of your window and magical things happen in your life. And chances are, if you've clicked on this video, you are excited about the magic that Whimsical Interiors can offer you. And I'm gonna break down the elements today so we can all go out and get it. Leave in the comments today what elements of whimsical vintage design you have in your home. In 2024, a lot of my design work will be inspired by vintage whimsical design, and here are the elements. First and foremost, pink color is very important when it comes to vintage whimsical design. And what I want to point out is that you cannot go wrong with colors as long as you don't go too saturated. Now, what do I mean by that? I've noticed when we go to colors we love, we go to the most saturated version for interior design. And this is an interior design mistake I see a lot of people make that we're gonna fix today. It can be beautiful to look at swatches online of bright blue colors or bright green colors or bright oranges and think, ooh, I want that color in my life. You do want that color in your life, but you just don't want it on your walls. And here is why. When you think about your walls, it is a massive architectural element that will change the entire light of the space. When we select our paint colors, we are actually in charge of crafting the light in the space. And that sounds like a huge responsibility, but really what I mean by that is we are going to either decide if we are embracing light and making the room lighter, or if we are making the room darker and we are suppressing that light. Here's how I like to approach it. When you are building a whimsical vintage space, and I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth between vintage whimsical and whimsical vintage, so we'll just see which one we land on. When the light is coming in to the space, I like to think about what are the darkest areas of the whole home and what are the lightest areas of the whole home. And I like to embrace the architectural moment on those blank walls. So if you have a naturally dark kitchen, it's going to be beautiful to embrace the naturally dark kitchen. If you have a lighter sunroom, it's going to be beautiful to embrace that lighter sunroom. I think it is the most beautiful to literally follow the light pattern. So in this particular vintage whimsical style, your lightest rooms, the things that are going to give you the fairy tale like aesthetic, is going to be light pinks, you know, some whites in there, little peaches, definitely going for things that are like light yellows if that matches. And to give you another layer of expertise here, I have actually linked specific paint colors that I think work so beautifully for whimsical vintage style. So one thing that I see is a consistent theme with whimsical vintage design is bookcases. And bookcases really do lend to the fairy tale aesthetic, I think for a very literal reason, which is they provide this kind of like old school charm of having books around and giving us that comfort that just like the perfect amount of clutter brings. I talk about the perfect amount of clutter quite a bit. So you can definitely go as far to buy the Billy bookcases and do a DIY on bookshelves. Lone Fox has done several DIYs on bookshelves, and so I'm linking that below because I think that would be an amazing resource for you. Third and foremost, antiques are giving you the look and the feel of the space. And I want to give you some guidelines as far as antiques. I would absolutely follow the Instagram vendors I've listed below, primarily based in England. A lot of them will ship to the States if you're located there, but definitely check with them directly. I love turning to them for inspiration. And this is what I will stress. Do not break the bank on antiques if you are on a budget. Spend first and foremost on your paint colors, on your fabrics, on things that will elevate your space, wallpaper even, but you are going to be living very functionally with your furniture. And so this is a great time to source from Facebook Marketplace for your budget specifically. I'm not saying like make any sacrifices. I'm saying the vision for your space is actually more important than each individual unique piece when it comes to your full budget and vision. So how you're gonna stick to the vision is you're gonna use inspiration photos. And for a lot of whimsical vintage design, you can see if we start breaking down actual elements in the image, there are a lot of worn in vintage pieces that have a ton of charm in them. For whimsical vintage design, definitely lean towards florals. Florals and chintz are an amazing way to amp up a whimsical vintage design and make you feel like you're living in a garden. I might not necessarily feel completely attracted to chintz, but if I want the whimsical vintage design, I can just get like a little taste of it on a throw pillow or something like that, and that's gonna give me a little nod to what I love. And also for whimsical vintage design, don't go without comfy furniture. So what I would say is just because we're going for slipcover, vintage looking kind of furniture, definitely still be mindful about scale. So what is going to make your vintage whimsical space look like it was designed by a designer is whether you were mindful of the scale of the piece. And when it comes to oversized, fluffy, big, beautiful couches, sometimes those can feel really out of place if we haven't measured properly. So here is my tip. Never have your furniture up against the wall. You want the seating area, the full seating area, to sit in the middle of the room, and that way you are never blocking light, you're never blocking circulation, and it's gonna look a lot more pulled together. And that way you won't have as many issues with scale. And of course, you cannot have vintage whimsical design style without vintage hardware. So it is very, very challenging to find enough vintage hardware for an entire house. So what I would suggest, if you can't find it, a full set for your space is, going and finding an inspired vintage piece of hardware. Last but not least, vintage whimsical design style also incorporates plants. I am not a good plant mama, but in 2024, I am going to be pursuing more forever lasting flowers, and then also a dried flower bouquet, something like that for all seasons. I may even play with faux florals because I want that vintage whimsical look without feeling the pressure of being a good plant mom. I just can't stand to see one more plant wilt in my presence because it's my fault. With that, I hope you enjoyed the deep dive into whimsical vintage design. And again, the full shopping guide is below. If you enjoyed this video, you are likely going to enjoy us designing our home from start to finish. So definitely check out that series in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Thanks for joining in.